This is the week where we covered the main trio of Yashahime and giving my thoughts on them, but more importantly, I took a look at what you all thought about them as well. And today we're going to be covering the final of the trio, and the topic will be Moroha, a character who tends to be people's favorite of the trio, although Setsuna seems to be picking up a lot of steam as well. Going into the series, Moroha was actually the one I was least excited for. That said, she almost instantly became my favorite of the three once we actually saw their personalities. Now, there is a super common complaint that I receive about her character, so today I'll be looking at the question, is Moroha too much of a comic relief character? If you enjoy these videos with more loose discussions on characters, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more. We have already covered both Towa and Setsuna, so be sure to go check those out if you've missed them. And if you want to support the channel a bit extra, you can also check out my Patreon through the link in the description. There should also be a link to my Twitch and Discord down there if you want to be a more active part of the community. I should be streaming on Twitch once this video goes up, but with that said, let's get into your thoughts on Moroha. Now, if you missed it, I asked in our episode review for your thoughts on each of the three girls. So let's see what you guys think about Moroha. So among all of the comments I received, these are the pros and cons which came up fairly regularly in regards to her characters. Obviously, people love her overall. She is easily the most popular character in the show, and while I do like Riku more myself, that's mostly because I like sneaky asshole characters. Of the three girls though, there's no competition for me. But what do people like about her specifically? Well, most people seem to agree on a few factors. Firstly, and the most commonly mentioned thing, is that she is funny as hell. Setsuna can be very serious, Towa can be, well, Towa, so Moroha acts as this binding factor that balances things out. She is the heart of the group. Her spiritual powers are also really interesting, not to mention Beniasha and the inclusion of abilities like Iron Reaver or Blades of Blood. People also really like that she is, quote, a cutie patootie, and she is very genuine, despite being shy when it comes to her emotions. Honestly, I thought there would be a lot more reasons, but to a lot of people it seems to really just come down to her being a really funny character and that humor being used in effective ways. Ironically, this is also something people really hate about her. Yes, her humor is an amazing tool, but there are times where they overuse it or the jokes become repetitive, and as a result, she can just feel cheapened. For example, a common joke is that she never gets her bounty and cries about it almost every episode, leaving many people saying, yeah, we get it, but that has other issues stemming from it as well that we'll get into later. Next up, Beniasha. There is way too heavy a reliance on it, despite the massive drawbacks, and she jumps to using it pretty quickly in fights despite only being allowed to actually use it like 3 or 4 times in the series. Finally, people feel like she is too much of a background character. There honestly aren't too many factors for people to not like Moroha, but the issues are pretty big issues. Imagine if someone cooked you a perfect steak or whatever your favorite food is, and there was just the smallest piece of poop on top of that steak. Like, yeah, the steak is great, but you know, the dookie is something that needs to be addressed, and that can kinda be what Moroha feels like sometimes. So what do I think about Moroha? Well, firstly, she's adorable. I love the kind of Red Riding Hood vibe mixed with that obvious design elements pulled from her parents. The bow in her hair to look like dog ears is a 10 out of 10. And having her be able to use a ton of different weapons and attacks is really cool. You got her sword, the Crimson Dragon Wave, the mini backlash wave thing she does, her bow, sacred arrows, the Heavenly Barrage, Iron Reaver, Blades of Blood, Beniasha, talismans, purifying salts, sacred powers, setting up barriers. Like, this girl does everything. Of the three girls, Moroha easily has the most versatility, but nothing about these really feels impactful, you know? Like, yeah, they're all fairly strong, but they aren't typically moves that will end a conflict, which honestly, I'm okay with for the most part. As an archer or a priestess, in most fantasy settings, she would have a support role, so having abilities that line up with that are great. The disconnect comes when you have moves like the backlash wave and all that, where it feels like she's supposed to be some kind of brawler or berserker. Instead of having her as a specialized role, they kind of gave her this jack-of-all-trades, master-of-none thing, which is okay, but it obviously leaves her feeling pretty lackluster sometimes. But all things considered, just about everything she does is still insanely badass. I just wish that it had a bigger impact. Speaking of bigger impacts, let's talk about her role in the story, since that's such a contentious topic. People have the understanding that Moroha, Towa, and Setsuna are all on equal footing, and yes, the show might focus on the twins a little bit more, but hey, she's the daughter of Inuyasha and Kagome. She has to be important. And yeah, she definitely is important. But I'm sorry to say she just isn't on their footing in terms of this story. And that's okay. I've said it a ton of times. There are 3 protagonists in Yashahime. However, Towa is the primary protagonist, the one who we see the world through. Setsuna is the secondary protagonist, the one who the plot revolves around, and Moroha is the tertiary protagonist. All things considered, she's just there to make money, which is a problem in itself. I love her to death, but in terms of this story, her relevance is kinda in third place. The thing is, when Inuyasha was running, Sesshomaru was the most popular character, and thousands of people asked for a show with him as the main focus. As such, in the sequel, they chose to focus on his children to kind of give people what they wanted, which inadvertently put Moroha in a step back. It doesn't matter if she's Inuyasha and Kagome's daughter, unfortunately this isn't their story anymore. This is the story of the next generation. Just because shows like Boruto might focus on Naruto's kid, that doesn't mean that all stories have to take that route. You can focus on the different aspect of the story. As an example, you could look at JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Each section of that story follows a different protagonist, and while they all can be related, it's not always a direct path. For example, in Part 5, we follow Dio's child as opposed to someone who's a purely Joestar character. And for me, that totally works. Part 5 is my favorite. In the same way, here we're focusing on Sesshomaru's kids as opposed to Inuyasha's, and that's totally okay. If we look at Inuyasha for an example, Moroha kind of has her father's personality, but more so fulfills the roles of characters like Sango and Miroku. She's still there, she's still very important to the story, but she's not the primary focus. And as a result, more times than not, it'll be characters like Towa taking up the main action of the story. But now we have the big topic, Moroha's comic relief. Let's start off by clarifying there is nothing wrong with comic relief characters. Look at Michelangelo in the Ninja Turtles. People love him, and the series would be lesser without him. In Moroha's case, though, it admittedly feels really weird. I mean, when I asked you on Twitter and YouTube, look at these polls. 3/4 of people on Twitter and 92% of 3,000 people on YouTube said that she's too much of a comic relief character, and that she's being underutilized. That is a lot of people feeling the same way about a character. And honestly, I strongly agree. However, the thing causing this problem is how they're doing comic relief. When you write a comic relief character, there are 2 ways that you can create them, and each of those can also be broken down to successes or failures. So first off, we have the full-on clown. In terms of successful characters, we could look at something like Excalibur in Soul Eater. They have one job, and that is to break tension and make people laugh. They don't have to be well-written characters because they aren't meant to be, and it's very rare for them to take a front seat. This can also be done in a much worse sense if we look at characters like Mineta from My Hero Academia. The humor that they use for him is kind of insufferable, and as such he really crosses the line from comic relief into just being an annoying character. The second kind of comic relief character are the ones who are funny but have a lot of depth to them. Think of something like Jiraiya in Naruto here. They know when they can ham it up, and they know when to have serious moments. They tend to be very popular characters because there's a lot going for them. And of the 2 types of comic relief, these will tend to be your protagonists. You could also argue that characters like Luffy, Saitama, or Joseph Joestar are all people who belong here as well. The issue is when this balance fails, and I'd argue Moroha kind of fits here. Yeah, she has her great moments, she has her funny moments, and her really serious sad moments as well. The problem comes from the specific types of jokes that they use with Moroha and how repetitive they are with them. At the base of Moroha's character is unfortunately tragic elements for sure. Both of her parents have been trapped, whether she knows it or not. She's been sold twice. She grew up effectively with no real family, but now we're combining that with a specific brand of humor that they attribute to Moroha. Yes, her dialogue humor is phenomenal. That's what makes us love her so much. But the show forces what I call failure humor on her. She wants money so that she can buy her freedom. Well, what if we made it so that despite earning the money and killing the demons that she needs to, she still never gets any of it? She wants to protect her friends. Well, what if we made it so that every time she reaches for her rouge, it's swatted out of her hands? Or we could make it so that her transformation lasts 30 seconds, is not useful at all, and becomes a big burden for everyone around her. Just things like that where the show tries to make it funny, or maybe try to make her feel impactful for a moment, but end up making it feel like we're punching down at some point. They give Moroha very little, and they're constantly taking from her, and it can leave a bad taste in your mouth. I don't know, like I said, Moroha is my favorite of the trio. I don't need her to be front and center. I just think that they need to tone back the haha she failed again moments. But those are just my own personal thoughts on Moroha, as well as some of my thoughts on your replies. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and if you want to see more videos like this where I analyze specific characters, who should I look at? This has been a bit of a different format this week, so be sure to let me know what you think down in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more, and consider checking me out over on Twitch at twitch.tv/AxelBeats for more streams. As always, a big thank you goes out to our patrons with the Dai Yokai Aikerochu, Jacob Wiley, and Iffy Babes, our Yokai NL Cruz, Bloodwolfmon, Jamie Heck, Joker Rose, Lucifina Akuma, and Sayo Arundel, and our Hanyo, Anthony Hogan, Brunette Thrasher, Kasim Salim, Love the Kiwi, Michael Grayco, Nega Kitty, Randy Moseyman, Samantha Olsen, Savage Camel, Simon Electric, and Kiwi Dog. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, remember to stay excellent.